Since Major League Baseball team owners locked out their players on December 2nd of 2021, all interactions around the league have ceased, except for negotiations concerning the collective bargaining agreement. If this argument doesn't come to a compromise, it may affect spring training, which typically starts later this month, and even opening day, which is set for March 31st. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Lexy Lideline, joined alongside JC Colavita and Chris Lemo. So gentlemen, let's get into it. The players have been locked out for 2 months now. JC, I'll start with you. What's been going on throughout this lockout?
Well, Lexi, I'm going to start this segment with a quote from the great Rogers Hornsby Hall of Fame second baseman. People ask me what I do when it's wintertime and there's no baseball. I'll tell you what I do. I stare out the window and I wait for spring. And I think we're going to be waiting for spring for a long time. It's going to be waiting for baseball I think it's going to last into May. It's been 2 months, as you said. December 2nd is when it started, and virtually no progress has been made. There was a meeting a few weeks ago, January 13th, where the main issues were not even discussed. Minimum salary was not discussed. Revenue based on luxury tax was not discussed. And these owners, they don't want to pay their players. There's been a 53% increase in revenue from 2012 to 2019, and the minimum salary has only increased by more than 5.5% one time over that span. And even a couple of days ago, the MLB Players Association, they declined the option for a mediator in these meetings, even after the owners, they said that they were going to have a counteroffer, and they never came. They welched on it. So I don't really see this coming to an end anytime soon.
Yeah, I think you kind of described it pretty well there, and I think that we are going to be waiting a while. Now, it feels like a little good cop, bad cop here. I'll give a little bit of some good news. Not much, but there is some. I think there's been a couple of key things that the Players Association and the owners have started to agree on. One, it sounds like there will be playoff expansion. Now, of course, there is an agreement on how many teams. The players, I believe, want more than the owners. The owners, I think, have it at 12 right now, which would allow for one extra team from each league. So, a couple of those eternally mediocre teams like the Philadelphia Phillies might actually have a shot to get in. Now, there's a couple other things that they agree on. It sounds like the DH will definitely be coming, which we've known that for a while. And it also sounds like that draft pick compensation that's tied to some players, like you look at a guy like Michael Conforto, they have to give a draft pick for whoever signs him. They have to give it to the Mets. That will be gone now, which will increase, hopefully, free agency spending for a lot of other players that are hitting free agency for the first time.
Well, if fans weren't worrying before, I hope they can sleep a little bit better knowing that maybe there may be some progress, hopefully soon, but it doesn't sound like there will be a lot. So I know we've just talked about what's been going on, but Chris, I'll pitch this over to you now. How do you think both parties have been handling it so far?
Well, about as poorly as you could get. I mean, quite honestly, look, when you make headlines that you're calling in a mediator and there's only been really a couple of offers so far and it's almost spring training, like that doesn't inspire confidence in the fans anywhere. And quite honestly, this isn't rare territory for the MLB as we've seen before. In the 90s, this happened. They couldn't come to an agreement, had to cancel the playoffs back then. And, when you look at it now in 2020, we went through the same thing, right? I mean, baseball had the chance during early on in the pandemic to be the first sport back, to bring sports back to fans all across the globe. And instead, they wasted their opportunity and brought it back the same week as the NHL and NBA. And you see it here again. They have the chance, baseball, to kind of look like, okay, the players and the owners are all in agreement. We're going to have baseball. We're going to have it uninterrupted for a while. But instead now we're heading towards the second of 3 seasons with possibly a shortened season. So it's been handled really poorly. And again, all the general fan sees is arguing over millions and billions of dollars. And the general fan probably doesn't care about that. They just want to see the sport back.
I'm right there with you, Chris. All of these teams, I looked it up today, all these teams except for the Marlins are worth over $1 billion. And these owners can't shell out money for these players. They deserve it. If people talking about how Bryce Harper was overpaid $330 million over 13 years, that is a bargain looking at what he did this past season. Now, I'm going to blame this not on the owners or the players, but on Rob Manfred, the commissioner. Oh my gosh, Rob Manfred. He got Ken Rosenthal, one of the most respected reporters in sports, fired because he was speaking basically the truth. He was exercising his First Amendment rights. You're worried more about your image when you should be worried about the game of baseball and how it really has deteriorated under your leadership. I mean, the couple of rules that he made, the Mickey Mouse extra inning rule, starting a runner on second base, horrible. The 7-inning doubleheaders. How many games are decided in the 8th and 9th innings? Those make or break, your season, your playoff season. And Rob Manfred, he hasn't handled himself well, and I think that until he leaves, baseball is going to be in dire need of some proper leadership.
Well, I'm hoping both parties learn from their mistakes in this instance and can definitely make better choices in the future. Speaking of the future, let's talk about how this situation may affect teams and owners and fans going on in the coming years. JC, I'll ask you, what are your thoughts?
Baseball has been my life always. It's something that I've loved. It's something that has been in my family. It's something that was passed down to me. And just seeing it deteriorate hurts my soul. Like, viewership is down, attendance is down, Little League enrollment is down. Just because kids they don't want to play baseball anymore. It's not a mainstream thing. And I just think that the MLB cannot afford to have a season this short again. I mean, the last time it happened, 1994, you lost the World Series. And how does that happen? How do you lose your biggest moneymaker of the year? And I just think that baseball needs to come back because there's a window. There's a couple of months window where it's the only sport around. That's where it gets the most viewership, the most money. And if it doesn't have that, we're in for a rough one.
Yeah, I do think that one of the big things about the whole baseball is a dying sport take, my issue with that is that it really isn't dying by itself. Like, I don't think a lot of it is that, people aren't interested. It could be part of that. But the big thing in my mind is that, one, I don't think the MLB markets its stars correctly at all. I mean, look at Mike Trout, may be the best professional athlete that people on the street might not be able to name. I mean, it's pretty sad when people aren't able to recognize the face of the game. Now, they've done better with Shohei Ohtani, Vladimir Guerrero, Tatis, which I think is good. They need that fun, youthful stars, those kind of guys to be ambassadors for the game as they've started to. Now, of course, as that's happening, they have the lockout to ruin all the momentum. Now, the other thing is yes, I do think it turns fans off of the game when you see billionaire owners and players that are, obviously worth a lot of money arguing, well, again, we just went through a pandemic with the lowest employment in God knows how long. So that's kind of the issue here is fans don't want to hear about that. They want to see the game. They want to see the young stars that they saw last year. I mean, when we had Tatis and Ohtani, I mean, look what he did last year. Nobody was talking about how boring baseball is when Ohtani was lighting the world on fire last year. So I think that's the issue with the sport. And once you get the two sides to finally agree on something, which it seems like they never ever do, then I think you'll be fine. And hopefully, one last thing that I'd like to say before they come to an agreement here is that they'll be able to agree on paying minor league baseball players so they don't have to sleep in clubhouses and eat fast food every day. That's another part of the problem is I do think, obviously the superstars get their money, but the minor leaguers and your average MLB player is not getting paid, and that's what a lot of the big issue is.
I definitely think you both made some really great and strong points, and I think Chris said it best. We want baseball to be around. Well, that's all we have for this MLB edition of Penn State Sports Night. We will have more updates on the lockout and CBA as negotiations continue. For JC Colavita and Chris Lemo, I'm Lexy Lideline. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night. We hope you liked that segment.
And we're sure there's other Penn State Sports Night segments that you are going to love as well. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.
And check us out on social media for updates and behind-the-scenes clips and pics. Follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action.
For all of us here at the Belisari Media Center, we are
Penn State Sports Night.